Everyone, I think Pratap was supposed to occupy this slot, so I hope all is well with him and he's moving the needle somewhere. So the title of my speech is doing more with less in less time. Doing more means getting more output or getting more goal units, whatever you want to call it, with less time and with less input. So that is what it means. Whatever I'm going to say in the next 5 odd minutes is all based on practical implementation experience of working with manufacturing and project based organizations. So I'm going to give some examples from manufacturing, but the principles are applicable to whether you work in a software or in a service company or for that matter government, or I think it could also be applicable for individuals. So I'm confident that I think you can take away something back from my speech in the next 5 minutes. So I want to offer to you a 3-step process of how you can become productive, how companies can become more productive specifically. But as I said, you could apply those principles to yourselves. So step number 1, right? So I've got some printouts today. So step number 1 in the journey of becoming productive and rather than just being busy is the fact that you need to identify what is the goal of the organization or goal of the company. Right? Imagine a situation where you're playing a football match or a cricket match, and that players don't know what is the goal or what is how are they going to win or lose, how is it going to be measured. And you'll be surprised that in many organizations, even at the senior level, people are not clear about what is the goal of the company, right? And even in cases where they are aware about what is the goal of the company, that itself is not sufficient, because you need to know what are the critical success factors and necessary conditions which support that goal. So we use a construct or a tool called a goal tree. Right, so I'm just going to show you what is a goal tree. So it has a goal on the top, critical success factors and necessary conditions. So my suggestion to you is that as you go back into your organizations, attempt a goal tree. I'm sure you will get some interesting insights from that exercise. So that's step number 1, right? Identifying the goal. Step number 2 is very important now. So you've identified your goal, you've identified your critical success factors and necessary conditions. But please bear in mind that if you want to be productive and not busy or be a busy bee, you've got to make sure that you understand the concept that in any company or any organization for that matter, there are only few limiting factors which stop the company from achieving more of its goal. What is typically called as a constraint or popularly known as a bottleneck, right? So if you are not working on your bottleneck or constraint, I'm sorry, you're just wasting your time and showing yourself off to be busy. If you want to be productive, go back into your companies and identify what is the constraint. There cannot be many constraints. There has to be only 1 or maximum 2 constraints which are determining the output of the organization. Look at it in a simple example in a manufacturing plant, right? If you have 5 machines, let's say the first machine gives you an output of 10, the second one gives you an output of 12, the third gives you an output of 6 units, the fourth one gives you an output of 7 units, the fifth one gives you an output of say 13 units. Which is the bottleneck in this? 6. Right? So what is the point in working on things which are not bottleneck? You will find in companies there are improvement initiatives and kaizens and so on. Everybody trying to be showing off themselves to be busy and efficient. But if you're not working on the bottleneck, you're basically wasting your time, right? So step number 2, please identify the constraints and work through what we call as the 5 focusing steps, right? Some of this collateral I'll share with you on WhatsApp, but basically go back and identify the constraint. So that's your step number 2. Now step number 3 is important. So you've identified the goal, you've also identified the constraint, and you have figured out that okay, what is the roughly the kind of solution I want to implement. So in the example which I just took, say for example you have decided that machine C is the one which is my bottleneck, and I have to get the most out of it, because if I've got orders, I need to be able to produce more. The problem is that if you do not follow this step 3, you end up again jumping into implementing the solution and wasting a lot of time. You think that you are very busy, but you are not productive. You don't move the needle. So the recommendation is, please invite all the objections for your solution right in the beginning, right? What we call as yes buts, right? So a small yes but a big but, right? So yes buts are of 2 types. One is, some people might say, I know what you're saying, what is your solution, but there are all these negatives which are there, so I don't think this is a good solution. The second yes but is that, yeah, the solution looks good, but there are too many obstacles to actually implement this solution. So invite both the negatives and the obstacles, and you will find that when you start the exercise, you think there are something like million yes buts which are going to come. Actually, there's not more than 5 or 6, right? But the beauty of the whole thing is that you will get the buy-in right up front, and you will be able to implement your solution much faster and move the needle. Okay, so the 3 steps, right? Identify the goal, identify the constraint, invite the yes buts. Now I want to just leave you in the end with, the timer has already shown me the green card. I want to leave you with an incident, which I think if you take something away from that, you can actually start implementing it immediately, as you step out of this meeting or tomorrow. And this is an incident which goes back to 1918. And the 2 main actors of this incident are a person called Charles Schwab, who was a president of Bethlehem Steel Company at that time and a rich, industrialist. And the second person is Ivy Lee, a productivity consultant, right? Now, Charles Schwab was known to be what is called as a master hustler. Every time trying to look out for every small opportunity to improve his company and bring about productivity. So he calls in Ivy Lee one of the days and says, can you help me to make my team and my company more productive? So Ivy Lee says, okay, I'll spend 15 minutes with each of your immediate reportees, and I'll give you a method. If you like it, if you implement it, after 3 months, you pay me whatever you feel like. Who would like that kind of a consultant, right? No fees upfront. So Ivy Lee then decides to sit down with each of the the managers and gives them only one method. Nothing very high tech. He just says that follow 3 steps. Right? The first step is, at the end of every day, you will list out 6 tasks which you want to complete the next day. Step number 2 is prioritize them. Step number 3 is do not move to the next task till you have finished the the first task. So let's say I start with the first task. Don't go to the second task till I have completed the first task. Only do this. So what do you think happened after 3 months? What did Charles Schwab do? Right? So he wrote a check of $25,000 for Ivy Lee, which in today's currency would be something like $500,000 to $1 million. Right? So that's the power of those 3 steps. So I invite you, all of you, to be Charles Schwabs. And you can even do online transfers nowadays. You don't need to even write a check. So thank you very much.